is faith the opposite of science? So me and my brother been disagreeing on this, so it could be very interesting. And disagreement is interesting and useful. Number one, my first point is faith should be based on science and logic. Otherwise, it will lead you to believe in ridiculous things. I'll just whiz through this really quickly. Faith also means not knowing how you will be rewarded for your action. So basically, there's what faith is, but now the second point is what's the value of faith? Like
Yeah, so I
faith
think
is,
there's a contradiction here because,
yeah,
for example, the first one
yeah,
it's so based on science and logic. This is human science and logic
yeah,
that we're talking about.
yeah.
Okay, and otherwise you could lead to believing some ridiculous things.
Mm,
So, for example, one could argue about your opinions about the roles of men and women.
mm.
They say, okay, our scientific conclusion is different to your religious conclusion. So maybe
Yeah,
that.
then I would
So
change my
maybe.
mind. Then I would change my mind. If there was scientific evidence that disproved my scientific evidence, then I'd change my mind. That's it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. But what my second point was about the value of faith. So faith is after knowing something makes sense, but you don't know how you're going to be rewarded or when you're going to be rewarded. You just know it makes sense to do the thing, right? So that makes that's really important, because otherwise doing a good deed become like a transaction. Like if you knew that if I did a good deed today, tomorrow I'm going to get £5 for it, that just becomes part of materialism. So faith is when you don't know how the good deed is going to be paid back, or if or when or whatever. You just know that it's a good deed. So you do, for example, I might do a good deed. I might be nice to my brother Hamid, right? But I don't know if he's going to be nice back to me. But I know in the big picture of things, logically, it makes sense to be good to people, because then people being good to each other makes the world a better place. But I don't know how I'm going to get paid back for it, but I know it's better for the world. Let's say. So that's what the value of faith is, right? And then the last point is there are times when you cannot test the truth, like you don't know enough, right? You're not scientific enough, for example. Okay, in which case um, the person who told you the truth should have a good track record in that particular area, right? So me and my brother were talking about our spiritual leader, and sometimes I would listen to something and sometimes I wouldn't. Okay, and that spiritual leader is not a scientist. Well, we're all scientists to some extent, right? But that's not like his. He might talk about, he might give advice best as he can about certain scientific thing, but he could be wrong, right? And the Prophet of Islam also said, like, he gave some sort of advice about horticulture or agriculture, and he said, and then afterwards it went wrong, and he said, don't listen to me if you know better, right? Because this is not my speciality.
Oh, you could still slip
Religion is
up
my
here because
specialty.
our spiritual leader
Yeah.
was actually an expert in agriculture. So.
Yeah, no. So wait,
Yeah,
so I was talking about two
yeah,
different examples.
okay,
I was
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about Prophet of Islam. He gave some agricultural advice about how to. But you're right. But the other thing that I was talking about, our current spiritual leader, he is very good with farming. So people are good at different things. It's true. That's a good point. Okay, but he gave some advice, very like niche advice about vitamin D getting it through a window, which you can't, right? But 99.99% of stuff I'm learning is from him as well. So it's good to balance that point of view. Like, just be aware that some things can be wrong, because people are human. They can say things that are wrong, which are maybe slightly outside their specialism. That's all. It happens. So what's your point of view?
yeah. So, what's the question? I'm not sure what
So,
you.
I mean, do you
Yeah.
disagree with any of it? What I said? Like, should faith be based on science and logic
Okay, so
as much as you know?
what's the role of what's where does okay? So it seems like your own scientific research
Mm.
is sufficient. Yeah.
As
So
best as you know, yeah, that's
so
fair enough.
where does religion come into it then?
So, okay, so one of the big things that atheists makes fun of religious people is that religious they claim that religious people have something called faith, which is not based on science. So, for example, a lot of Christians would believe that the universe was created in 6 days, and that's against commonly understood science, but that's their faith, right? And I'm saying that is an incorrect understanding of faith, because if you go to the dictionary, if you Google the meaning of the word faith, they will tell you it's something that's not really
Okay,
based on
so I see where
fact.
you're coming. Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
saying you
So this is an important topic in that sense, is what
there's
I'm
lots of
talking about.
different versions of what faith is from different
Yeah.
people. And so
Mm.
you need something independent to be able to check that,
Yeah,
which is
so I'm
science.
saying,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think a lot of people misunderstand this. Religious people, as well as atheists, misunderstand this topic. Okay, what is faith? Does faith mean just believe something when you don't even know
If
or
you,
have a
if
good
you,
reason for
I
it?
see. Okay, I understand what you're saying. If you just go completely, you know, yeah, fully lean on religious teachings without even thinking, then history has proven that religious teachings can lead you astray as well, because there's different versions and some
Well,
versions
if
are
they
right.
get corrupted, in my opinion, but
Yeah,
yeah,
if they
yeah,
get
yeah.
corrupted, and you can get so some people, religious people, will go down one path, and some will go down another path, and which one's right, which one's wrong. And the only way you can check is by stepping away outside of that and using your common sense, as we talked about, and you know the best science that you can make use of to make the right decision.
Yeah. And it's not even
Um,
necessarily religious situations. The reason why Hitler was able to control so many people is because he told them, this is the truth, don't question it. And people didn't question it, and they killed their neighbors and all sorts of people just because they were told that. And so this is a weakness in psychology, human psychology. They've tested it so many times. Like, you forget even religion. There's a really famous experiment that's all pretty much all psychologists will know. It's called Milgram's experiment. And basically, just by somebody wearing a white lab coat telling you this is what you should do, and effectively in this experiment the person was try, told to kill somebody else, and they did it. So they don't question, they you have to think for yourself, question, make sure what you're saying makes sense, is what I'm saying. Don't just follow orders, be careful with that.
yeah, but then there's a practical side of it as well. You see, so if you're part of an organization,
Hmm.
every organization has a structure and has it and relies on people, complying with instructions, whether
Yeah,
they
so that's the
agree with them.
danger. So Hitler had an organization, right? Because if you start saying my organization is perfect, that's a circular argument. So you
Well, I
can't
haven't
assume,
said that, but I just said that
but
for yeah.
yeah. So Hitler had an this is exactly the what I'm talking about. Hitler had an organization, and people said, we need unity, we need all this kind of stuff. Just listen, and then we saw the result, right? So it's really dangerous. So you have to think for yourself, and don't be part of the organization if it's doing something wrong. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Just
no,
step
I'm just
away.
saying
Yeah.
we're always part of one organization or another.
Yeah, but we gotta choose
So
to. We have to opt to not be part of that organization
yeah,
at
but you're
times.
yeah, no, I think you've oversimplified things, because you can't have any organization without some structure and obedience.
I think you
Uh,
can. You can
no,
always
you're just
give me one example, because I think you're oversimplifying. Give
yeah.
me one
Okay,
example where you have to be in an army, for example. Yeah, let's say in an army, right?
no, army is an extreme example. Any
Sure.
ordinary civilian organization,
Okay, so tell me,
a
like
business or a company.
your job, yeah,
Yeah,
your
say
job.
yeah,
If
my
your
job. Yeah.
job told you to, in your part of your job, smack kids around, you wouldn't do it, would you? You would say, "I quit," right?
Yeah, that's
Or
true.
you would
Yeah,
step
yeah.
back. So every single situation, that you cut, I think you're simplifying it. The simple thing is, you have to, as an individual, always choose between right and wrong, because you are accountable even to yourself. You won't even like yourself if you aren't 100% accountable for doing the right thing every single time.
Yeah, you have
That's
to become. You have to be comfortable in yourself about what you're doing. Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, that was a good
Yeah.
discussion, because what you're saying, a lot of people think, and I think, and at the end, the viewers decide what they think, really, and it's just exposing them to different ideas is what's important. So